Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, check one, two. Hey, I just wanted to check in. I know it's been a while, and I'm working on chapter 4 right now. Appreciate everybody for liking, following, and like, follow, share, and all that. Whatever you hear online for you to help out the channel. But I'm just here. Just thought I'd stop in and check in because it takes a while, and I've realized this as I've been going. As far as editing, there's a lot of research. The AI stuff came out, and I'm working with the AI. You can tell some of the AI just looks whack, but I use a lot of stuff anyway, and so I'm slowly learning, going through the process of trying to make this a better imagery as far as telling stories, so that you guys can get the picture of what I see when I read a mariner's experience. You can see I'm not in that office. I'm just out here at a restaurant that I work at, and so I thought I'd just stop by, and I think I'll probably drop a chapters and just throughout the week or between chapters talk about a point or a principle about something that I find very interesting as far as how it used to be and how it is now, and the differences in the cultures and how we are, right? And I think the first interesting part, as far as what we've read so far, is the classification of people, where cooks are at the bottom, right? There's people lower than the cooks. There's kaifonua, which are peasants, right? And those are just regular people who probably don't do anything. And then it just goes upwards. If you saw the list, it goes upwards into barbers and tattoo guys and builders, and goes higher and higher. Where nowadays, if you are a barber or tattoo guy, especially entrepreneur wise, you're the ones making big money, big bucks out here now, right? If you're a chef, you're making big bucks, right? You have a restaurant, you're running something like that for food, right? Now the difference is, right, where back then, unless you could really do something with your hands, as far as building, you really were on the lower part of the totem pole. I thought that was interesting. Also, that they all accepted that, when Tuaho amputated his cook's arms just to prove that, or to mark them as his cooks, and just to prove that he has power and all that, we may look at it as something very barbaric, which is true, and from Tupo Niwa's point, it was true, but also the fact that they were just cooks, and how Finau Ulukalala treated that cook that climbed up the mast to cut down metal, kind of tells you that they were treated pretty much the same in society throughout all of Tonga. When I speak of Tonga, and when I say Tonga, I can't absolutely say all of it. I can say specifically what Mariner went through. So this is from Hapai and Vava'u, right? Where I feel like the Tonga history that we're taught, or that we've learned thus far, comes specifically from the Tupo family, and the Tonga history starting from George, right? But that was Tonga Tapu. But we see now that the kingdoms and the kings, they had nothing to do with each other, as proof of Mariner, or not Mariner, but Ulukalala always attacking Tonga Tapu, right? And so there's a lot of details, a lot of things like that we can elaborate on between chapters. And I think I'll start doing that just so that I don't leave you guys hanging on things, right? So you also look at the classification of society as far as cooks, and comparing it to the political class here in America, and how people in the food industry, right, McDonald's, or you look at the minimum wage and how they complain about there being a minimum wage. They want more wages for flipping burgers or working at McDonald's, right? Which really, in my own opinion, you go to a lot of the rich areas, and those are children working those jobs. Where you go to a lot of the the urban, or lower parts, or lower middle to low class economically, and it gets older. The adults start running the the hamburger spots and the cooking and whatnot. And so they're requesting more wages. If you were to go back into society back in Tonga and you were to do that, look how they treated those guys. Just imagine if they asked for a minimum wage, right? Or a wage increase. Forget about it, right? So we're comparing basically the brutality, or just savage, a pure savage nation that still has so many elements of pure God-fearing, God-following type people. Because as we know, they go to the graves and they believe in witchcraft and they believe in spiritual things. So it's not like they didn't have souls at all, or they didn't have consciousness. It's just that they really felt like there was supposed to be a classification of society, and you guys are the lowest ones, right? But at the same time, just like the woman when they were walking Mariner across the beach in the beginning in chapter 1, and there were the guys were throwing stuff at him. He was naked, and the coconut shells were hitting him, and he was bleeding. The lady that came out and dressed him, right? You can only imagine an old Tongan lady coming out, and those guys stopping, right? They didn't do anything to her. They basically, older lady in society, stopped, dressed him so that he's dressed in something, and you can kind of picture or imagine what she's saying, right? Like, don't treat him like that. She probably felt sorry for him, right? If you're not going to kill him, at least treat him respectfully. And we see those things in the behaviors of how they behave, that it's almost contradicting. In the time of war, they just burnt the ship and killed a lot of Palangis. For this lady to come out, stop them from walking him, and him bleeding and everything, and them allowing her to dress him, and he may not have seen it as something significant, but these are a lot of the things that we're going to be looking at from the things that he wasn't able to see, from what he wasn't able to sense, just from because he's not completely and absolutely aware of what's going on, where we can kind of look and see, why would a woman come out and help him in a time of war while they're attacking, while they just killed people, right? And so it was surprising also to John Martin that a savage group of people can still hold together a culture so closely knit, right, tied with religion, with God, with priests, with respects, with orders in society, priests. And we'll talk about how high or how highly they put women, right, and old people, all the way up there. So, freaking fridge is going off and whatnot. Anyways, so I thought I think I'll stop by, and just mention a point that you guys may have thought about or may not have thought about, that we'll talk about, right? The Hawaiians are there. There's still 8 Hawaiians there. How many Hawaiians actually are there? We don't know, because we do know that there are Hawaiians already there, right? That have been on other ships. We know that the Fijians are already there. They've been on other ships. We know that there's Balangis already there. In the next war in chapter 4, there's 15 Balangis that join the war. 8 of them have muskets, and we'll know that there's already 8 Hawaiians, and they knew how to use muskets. And then they have Mariner and 4 of his friends, and they're going to be using the carronades, the cannons. And so there's so many things I'd like to share during the story time, but I think it's better if I kind of break it down to, I'll tell the story in one setting with all the editing and all the musics and sounds. And I'm a beginner, like I'm a rookie. If you can't tell by now, I'm just barely starting and learning how to use the AIs, the sounds, the music. I'm using the same one, right? There is nothing too fancy, but it is a lot of work, and it does take a lot of time. There's times where I spend 5, 6, 7, 8 hours editing and researching and AIing and looking things up and finding things and reading and recording and whatnot, and that I look into the actual edit after hours, and it'll be only like 5-10 minutes of editing. So it's almost like an hour or 2 of research to get a complete full minute of editing, and so it's taking up a lot of time. And I wish it wasn't like that, but I'm doing it by myself, and I enjoy it. So just hang in there, and we'll get through this thing slowly. But because just because there's so much freaking information. But anyways, hang in there. I'll think of something to talk about tomorrow. And just stop by just to kind of keep everybody fresh as far as what's going on, right? So if there's any questions or comments, there was somebody that came on. He deleted his comment already, but he did come on and he was telling me not to do this, not to tell this story. This is a bullcrap story, or it's something you don't tell about history that I don't know. And he said he is a descendant of Ma'afu, and also a descendant of Ta'akai, right? Ma'afu, as we know, was a chief in Fiji, right? Where right now, as we're talking, the time that Mariner was there, Finau's uncle, Finau Fisi, is the chief of Fiji, which is, we're talking 60 to 80 years before Ma'afu, right? And this guy's telling me that I should learn or read or research. Don't talk about his history and his. I'm not talking about your history. And if you didn't know, I don't even know if Takai even met Ma'afu, because Takai was in Mariner's time, where Ma'afu, he was born in 1816-ish, right? By then, Mariner was already gone, and Takai is in his 50s by then. So it's almost as if they just crossed paths because of the age difference. Besides, this whole thing is just me pretty much sharing. This is pretty much just a book report, right? This is somebody who experienced something in Tonga and the intimate and intricate details of our history and our culture, and that's what I'm sharing, right? Because there's too much and there's so much history about Tonga and about Polynesia and about whether it's Samoa or Fiji or wherever else, that they pinpoint it into this goes to everybody and this goes to all of Tonga, where once we read the book, it has different, sections and different, groups of people. Hey, you're in the camera shot, Brett. Get out of the shot. You're in the shot. What the heck? It's my oldest freaking idiot freaking helmet daughter. Okay, anyway, so to that guy, and then he deleted his message, which I hope he's still watching and still listening. Like, follow along, because everything your dad and your uncles and your grandfather and whoever told you may tie into a lot of this. There's a lot of people that keep telling me, stop doing that, stop, you're listening, you're from a Palang story, you're from that, because it's different from what they have told us and they have, brought to us, when really, why don't we take this? Because I can understand why you would not want to share this story, because it's freaking gruesome, it's brutal, right? It's savage, right? So I would get it if you're trying to join big nations and big societies and civilizations. Excuse me, I would understand why you don't want to share that part of your history, but come on, we want to know. What if we wanted to know? You're saving face. These historians are saving face to make us look like we are this nice, kind, godly people that come from mythological creatures making love in the ocean, right? Pulling things out of the islands, out of the ocean, all this other stuff. We're really, hold up. If that's not how it happened, and this is how it happened, it just happened to be that we killed each other, why don't you guys want to share that now? So what I'm doing is I'm allowing and I'm bringing out everything from Mariner's point of view. And just like I said, it is Mariner. He does run into a bunch of people throughout the story from Tonga Tapu. He has relatives in Hihifo. He has relatives in Tonga that he actually runs into, or that come to visit him, and he goes visit them, or he has people visit them. And Mariner tells everything that he sees. And so we'll go through and talk about all this so that you guys all know the details of how we actually were. And it's amazing the similarities of behavior and characteristics, like the humor, right? The funny. They made fun of each other. They made, regardless of how savage they were in the war, in the battlefield, there was a lot of mention of how kind they were to each other, how peaceful they were. There's a lot of things about discipline, self-discipline, and how men were expected to control their appetites and their anger, and they were expected to be disciplined, absolutely, completely. They did not pop off. They allowed and expected women to pop off, which they felt like was a female characteristic, but they absolutely did not allow, not even for Mariner, to expose emotion. Men, they weren't allowed to do that. They weren't supposed to do that. And so there's a lot of things like that as far as behavior. The comedy and the humor blows my mind how similar it is to us today. It's freaking crazy. Just like the one where, they clown on balangis because balangis, you have to go, and be invited to go eat and whatnot. There's a whole bunch of anecdotes like that where they expose the Palangi culture and then they realize, oh, we may be a savage nation, but the essence of the behavior and the culture of our people is actually superior, as far as we believe that this is what the gods would expect of us. And self-discipline was one of those things. Humor was one of those things. Being able to laugh at things. And so, yeah, so I'll be sharing these things, anecdotes, a little at a time, here and there, stopping by, just, keep taking notes as I go, because the editing process takes a lot. I did do 3-part of chapter 3. I think I'll break it down more in chapter 4 so I can be more elaborate and put chapter 4 in a 5 or 6, even, maybe more parts, and try to make it so that it's faster if I break it down in little parts. Anyways, like, share, subscribe. Comment, ask questions. I'll get to it if I can. So like I said, it does take up a lot of time. I do work here in this restaurant, but I'll do whatever I can. But I am going to get through this entire story, right? There's 2 books, there's 2 volumes, and I'm going to get through the entire thing, just so that at least all this can be documented, even if nobody watches, even if anybody just wants to check up on it, they can come and see how Tonga was back in the day. I especially want to do this for my parents and for the OGs, the old folks. This read is a difficult read, right? Because it's in Old English and there's so many adjectives and not pronouns, but verbs, and the way the grammar is set up in Old English makes it difficult to understand. Not only that, but the vocabulary is old school, like extensive words, right? The vocabulary blew my mind. I had to read this entire book with a dictionary just so that I could look up all the words. Like, there are some sentences where in every sentence there's a word I had to look up. Sometimes every other sentence. So I could understand why it'd be a difficult read, because it's hard to read, to understand, for my parents anyway, and for OGs, and I guess for people in general. Not saying anybody can't read. I'm just saying for those who can't understand it, I wanted to do this for them too, because when I read it, and after I read it with the dictionary and whatnot, my mind was blown. I was sold on, I'm going to tell this story so that everybody gets to hear. Anyways, we'll cut it off there, and I'll stop by and probably drop something every night. Freaking idiot. Anyways, okay, Ofatu. Yep.